Hello and welcome to our ABLE Program Spotlight Series featuring the Oregon ABLE for All program. My name is Chris Rodriguez. I'm the director of the ABLE National Resource Center. I'm very excited today to kick off this series with the with the Oregon ABLE for All program. Over the next 12 months, every other month, we're going to be doing a similar webinar highlighting different ABLE programs around the country so that folks can get a better understanding of what these programs look like on the ground. Before we get started, let me take care of some housekeeping things. The audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through your computer. Please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel. If you accidentally close the panel, you can reopen it by going to the Communicate menu at the top of the screen and choosing Join Audio Broadcast. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer or would prefer to just listen by the phone, the dial-in information is not only located in your confirmation email when you registered, but is on the right hand of the screen currently. Captioning. Real-time captioning is provided during this webinar. The captions can be found in the Media Viewer panel, which appears in the lower right-hand corner of the webinar platform. If you want to make the Media Viewer panel larger, you can minimize other panels such as Chat, Q&A, and/or Participants. For questions and answers, please use the question and answer box to submit any questions you have during the webinar, and we will direct those questions accordingly during the Q&A portion of the webinar. If you are listening by phone and not logged into the webinar, you may also ask questions by emailing questions to kauchenbach@ndi-inc.org. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and the materials will be placed on the ABLE National Resource Center website at the following link. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box to send a message to the host NDI admin, or you may also email kauchenbach@ndi-inc.org. Okay, so today's presenters consist of me, Chris Rodriguez, Director of the ABLE National Resource Center, David Bell, the Managing Director of the Oregon Savings Network, and Jim Bolson, who's with BNY Mellon, who's the Managing Director of Someday Solutions for State-Sponsored Savings Plans. We have a pretty short agenda today. Many of you, I'm sure, have been with us in other webinars that typically last 90 minutes. These Spotlight webinars are going to be 60 minutes, and they're going to consist of a quick rundown of ABLE history and ABLE basics. These are the basic things related to ABLE that we often begin most of our webinars on. Then we're going to transition to Dave, who's going to tell us what these programs, and in particular what his program, the ABLE for All Oregon program, looks like on the ground, which is very exciting. And then we're going to leave questions, hopefully, at the end for some Q&A that we're collecting through the Q&A portal. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. For those who don't have a lot of knowledge about ABLE, we want to make sure we're covering the basics before we get down into the nuts and bolts of things. So what is the ABLE Act? Well, the ABLE Act's technical name is the Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience Act, and what it does is it amends the federal tax code to add a new section called Section 529A. And what that section basically does is it creates a new option for eligible people with disabilities to save money in a tax-exempt account that may be used for qualified disability expenses while maintaining or keeping their eligibility for their federal public benefits. So you can see those different things in there that are underlined. We're going to tell you what each of those things mean here in the coming slides. So a little bit more about the history just quickly. The ABLE Act took nearly a decade of advocacy in order to get through the legislative process, but by the time it actually became law and was on the President's desk, over 85% of the entire U.S. Congress supported the ABLE Act. So it had vast bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate. What it does, again, it authorizes but does not require states to establish and maintain these ABLE programs that allow qualified individuals access to ABLE accounts. States, soon after the bill was passed in late December of 2014, states acted very quickly to pass their own state ABLE laws, which allowed them to begin to set up these programs. And as of June 2016, the first ABLE account was opened and available, which is really exciting. And since then, I have to update this, there's actually 33 states plus the District of Columbia have actually launched ABLE programs. And most of those programs are actually available nationwide, and we'll get to what that means here in a little bit as well. So let's go over very quickly some ABLE basics. So these are basic characteristics that are going to govern all ABLE accounts, no matter if you're in the Oregon program or if you're in the Virginia program or in the Ohio program. What we're going to talk about right now, what I'm going to concentrate on are characteristics and aspects of these programs that will be consistent across all programs. So there are eligibility criteria related to opening up an ABLE account that speak, number one, to the age in which the individual first experienced his or her disability, and two, related to the severity of that disability, and we'll dig into that here in a little bit. Additionally, an eligible individual is not obligated to enroll in their state of residence. So just because you may live in one state doesn't necessarily mean that you can't enroll, provided that you're eligible to open an ABLE account in another state, and we'll talk about that in greater detail in a bit as well. It's also important to note that the designated beneficiary is the account owner. So when you hear terms like designated beneficiary or account owner or person with a disability, those are all the same person. And we wanted to make sure that the law was written that way to allow people with disabilities really a new level of independence with respect to their funds, their money, how they spend it, and making decisions about their financial futures. That being the case, there are certain circumstances wherein either the beneficiary, the person with a disability, the account owner, either does not have the capacity to oversee their account, or perhaps they just want some help with it. So the law is now allowing for 3 different types of people to have what's called signature authority, which basically allows them to exercise authority over the account on behalf of the person with a disability, even though in those circumstances the designated beneficiary still remains the account owner. Those 3 types of people can be, number 1, a parent of the beneficiary, 2, the guardian of the beneficiary, or 3, a person that's been given power of attorney by the beneficiary. If you're not one of those 3 types of individuals, then under current law you would not be allowed to exercise authority over that account on behalf of the individual with a disability. Additionally, funds in the account may be used for what's called qualified disability-related expenses, and we'll talk about those here in a little bit as well. Assets in and distributions for qualified disability-related expenses will be disregarded or given special treatment when determining eligibility for most federal means-tested benefits, including Social Security and Medicaid. And I use the word most in there, and we'll talk about why I use the word most as opposed to all here in a bit. Also, anybody can contribute into a person's ABLE account. That includes friends, that includes family members, that includes employers, and that most definitely includes the beneficiary themselves. Perhaps as having income from employment, they can put those funds into their ABLE account as well. So anybody can contribute into an ABLE account. Now that being said, there is an annual contribution limit, and currently that stands at $15,000. So that means that all contributors combined are not to exceed $15,000 in any given tax year. And again, these are things that are consistent across all programs. So let's talk about just very quickly about eligibility and why this is a program for some people with disabilities or certain people with disabilities as opposed, unfortunately, to all people with disabilities. Well, it's because there is eligibility criteria, and again, it's broken down into what I call 2 prongs that need to be met. So the first one is the age of onset in which the individual first experienced their disability, and the law states that in order to be allowed to open up an ABLE account and maintain an ABLE account, the person must have had an onset of disability or first experienced their disability before their 26th birthday. So that doesn't mean that you can't be older than 26 and have an ABLE account. It just means that your disability must have occurred or had an onset, or you must have first experienced that disability before age 26. So that's the first prong that you have to meet. The second prong has to do with the severity of that particular disability that you first experienced before age 26. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can satisfy this. The first one being that if you have been determined, or if you're a current beneficiary of either SSI, which is Supplemental Security Income, or SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, then you're good to go, which means that you're currently receiving those benefits through SSI or SSDI and your disability occurred before age 26, you're good to go. You should start looking at different ABLE programs and determining which one best meets your needs and enrolling and enjoying the benefits associated with being an ABLE account owner. Now let's say you meet the age criteria, but for whatever reason you are not currently a beneficiary of either SSI or SSDI. Perhaps you have employment and you make too much money to qualify for those. Perhaps you have too many assets. Perhaps you're just in the waiting period, in the determination period, but still want to get involved with ABLE to start saving for your future. Well, you can have what's called a disability certification, and that assures that the individual holds, or the person applying for the ABLE account holds documentation of a physician's diagnosis and signature and confirms that the individual meets the functional disability criteria written in the ABLE Act. And this all relates to the severity of the person's disability. So, we've talked a little bit about basics. We've talked about who's eligible. Let's talk about very quickly what exactly can these funds that are contributed into this account be used for? Well, they can be used for, as I said previously, for qualified disability-related expenses. Well, what in the world does that mean? Well, qualified disability expenses are expenses that relate to the designated beneficiary's blindness or disability and are for the benefit of that individual, the designated beneficiary, and helps him or her maintain or improve their health, independence, or quality of life. So as you can imagine, as you're thinking, that's incredibly broad, and we wanted to make sure that the law allowed for such a broad interpretation because we can appreciate the vast array of different supports that people with disabilities need and different types of expenses related to their disability. So we didn't want to make a narrow definition. We wanted to make sure that for whoever is qualified to open an ABLE account, that they could, no matter what their expenses were related to their disability, they'd be able to utilize those dollars in that fund, in that savings account, in order to try and offset some of those expenses related to living a life with a disability. Additionally, again, qualified disability expenses should be broadly construed, and they can even include things that would fall under basic living expenses. And there's no medical necessity to these types of expenses. So it's not like Medicaid where perhaps you need to go to a physician or your doctor and they need to sign off saying, yes, you need, that wheelchair, or yes, you need that shower chair, or what have you, and then you can go spend Medicaid dollars on that. It's much, much more broad than that. You don't have to go to a physician in order to be able to use the money. You don't have to have somebody overlooking basically what you're spending the funds on, as long as you're confident that they are actually meet the definition of what we talked about in terms of a qualified disability expense. So some of the things, Congress provided some what I like to call buckets or categories in which these qualified disability expenses might fall under. And again, it's fairly expansive, so it includes education, housing, transportation, employment training and supports, assistive technology, personal supports and services, health, prevention and wellness, help with financial management and administrative services, legal fees, and it even goes so far again as covering funeral and burial expenses and basic living expenses. So again, very, very broad in terms of what you can contribute the funds, what you can use the funds contributed into your ABLE account. So it's very, very good. Now, that being said, it is important to note that if you misuse the funds in an ABLE account, they will be subject to tax penalties and consequences. And I think more importantly, funds that are taken out of the account for non-qualified expenses may be counted against you in terms of your eligibility for federal means-tested benefits, such as Social Security and or Medicaid. So it's important to understand what you can use these funds on, and it's important to understand what happens in a situation in which you deliberately or accidentally misuse the funds. Okay, so we're going to talk about what I think is probably the thing that makes ABLE so incredibly special, which is the fact that the funds in an ABLE account will not be taken into consideration when determining the beneficiary's eligibility for things like Social Security, Medicaid, HUD benefits, SNAP benefits, things like that. Until tools such as ABLE came along, many individuals with disabilities across the United States are really shackled to a life of poverty because they are not allowed to save more than very modest amounts of funds for fear of losing the supports and services, the very vital supports and services that are provided by programs like Medicaid and Social Security. So it's important to note that. However, that being said, there is one exception, and I want to make sure that everybody understands this, and this relates to ABLE account owners who are also receiving SSI. And what the law states is that once that account owner's account exceeds $100,000, so once it goes over $100,000, the SSI cash payment, that monthly cash benefit associated with SSI, will be suspended, not terminated, until such time as the beneficiary's ABLE account balance falls back below that $100,000 threshold. So you're not kicked off SSI even if it goes over $100,000. It's just the cash benefit is suspended. And we're working with programs right now in order to make sure that they're going to make clear that once an account starts to approach $100,000, the beneficiary will be notified, letting them know what would happen if they exceed that and giving them options perhaps on how to maintain keeping under $100,000 if they so choose, or going past it but understanding that they would lose that SSI cash benefit. So that's the only exception that's within the law in terms of funds in the account counting with respect to eligibility for federally means-tested benefits. That being the case, I want to reiterate that even if, because I know a lot of people who qualify for SSI qualify for Medicaid and use their eligibility for SSI to get their Medicaid, and Medicaid obviously provides such vital supports and services to people with disabilities. I want to make sure that folks understand that even if you go over the $100,000 in an ABLE account and forfeit that cash benefit associated with SSI, your Medicaid remains intact. So that's important to note. The other thing that's important to note that relates somewhat to Medicaid is a provision within ABLE called the Medicaid Payback provision. And what this says is that any assets, so any funds remaining in the ABLE account when the beneficiary, so when the person with a disability passes away, those funds can be used to reimburse state Medicaid payments for state Medicaid payments made on behalf of the beneficiary after the creation of the ABLE Act. The state would have to file a claim for those funds. So that's important to note. Now, some states are passing legislation that would disallow their state from filing that claim, and you can go to our ABLE National Resource Center website to figure out which states those are, but they are allowed to do that, so that's important to note. So we often refer to ABLE as a very incredible tool for asset building and getting around some of these asset tests related to Medicaid and Social Security. But we wouldn't necessarily at this point consider it a good tool perhaps for wealth transfer, right? So perhaps if you're interested in that, you might want to look into something like a third-party special needs trust might be able to meet your needs better. So again, as I said previously, 33 states plus the District of Columbia have launched ABLE programs. Most of them have national programs, meaning you don't necessarily need to live in that particular state in order to enroll in it, provided that you meet the eligibility criteria that we talked about. There's a list of them here, but again, I encourage folks to go to our website at www.ablenrc.org. We have a map on the front page there where you can click on any given state and it'll tell you where they are in terms of providing ABLE accounts for folks. So with that, we went through all that information. I want to reiterate the fact that the information that I covered, that's going to be stuff that's consistent across all programs, kind of gives you the 35,000-foot view of what ABLE looks like. But what I think is really exciting is having the opportunity to listen to folks like Dave here that helps oversee an individual ABLE program so we can really see what do these things look like on the ground. So with that, I don't want to take up any more time, but I want to turn it over to David Bell, who's going to introduce us to the ABLE for All program and some other programs that are associated with ABLE for All and the Oregon State program.
That's great. Chris, thank you so much. Yes, this is David Bell. I work for the Oregon State Treasury, specifically a group called the Oregon Savings Network under Treasury. And we are going to talk a little bit about the ABLE for All savings plan, which is the savings plan that Oregon runs that's for all people throughout the entire United States. But I also want to talk about a couple other plans that we collaborate with that are very special. And I worked really hard to make sure that the information that we were going to share today did give you some insights into our ABLE savings plans, but also hopefully you can take some tidbits away for other savings plans across the country. Of course, they'll have opportunities to talk about their plans, but I want to make sure that this is relevant for those people that are on this call that may already have a savings plan with another state, an ABLE savings plan, or may open one with another state. With me, I have Jim Balson. He is our partner. He works for BNY Mellon's Someday group. They are the group that works with states like Oregon and a number of others to administer these savings plans. So a little bit later, I'll be passing it on to him to go over some information as well. So let's dive right in. As I said before, we will use ABLE for All as kind of a springboard to talk about some of the things today, but I wanted to highlight some of the other states that either we directly manage or we work with in a collaboration. It's called the ABLE collaboration, as you can see here from the slide. The Oregon ABLE Savings Plan and the ABLE for All Savings Plan are managed by us here in Oregon. We have partnerships and collaboration efforts with Maryland ABLE, which you see there in the middle. They're up and running since November of last year, and they are doing a tremendous job. At the bottom, you see Washington State ABLE Savings Plan, and then also Connecticut ABLE with the logo coming soon. These two savings plans will be launched soon. We're all part of the ABLE collaboration, but we still have very specific plans to our state because each state launches their own plan. We just work together in a collaboration to really make sure that we're getting this right. These savings plans have to work for you, the individuals that are going to utilize this. And the more individuals and the more minds that we have around this, focused on this, we think is the better, and that's why we created the ABLE collaboration. But we didn't stop there. As you can see from this slide, this is just a quick snapshot of some of the incredible organizations and individuals that we worked with to establish our plans and continue to work with to make sure that we innovate and make these plans simpler and easier to use and more of a resource for you. Some of these are national organizations like the National Disability Institute and the ARC. Some of these are local to the states that we're opening up these plans. And then we work, of course, and I think most importantly, with self-advocates themselves, because they're the ones that can give us the best insights into what these plans really need to do and act and work for them. So anything that you like about our plans, I'm guessing probably came about because we got some really good insights from individuals and groups that gave us that working knowledge. But because this webinar is focused on a very specific plan, let's just use the ABLE for All Savings Plan as kind of a guideline here. We'll walk through this savings plan. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about today are going to be very similar for those other savings plans that we talked about in the ABLE collaboration. As I said before, these are all very specific plans to that state, but when we find a good idea, a good thing that's going to work, if it works for the other state, we implement it there as well. So a lot of these things are going to be relevant not only for Oregon's plan, for ABLE for All, for Maryland, Washington State, and Connecticut, but you might also see these in some of the other savings plans around the United States. This is interesting, though, because this is a chance for us to kind of go behind the scenes, and that's what we're going to focus on today. First off, before we go behind the scenes, let's just talk about all of the different websites that are out there. I would echo what Chris said earlier. If you really want to get a good understanding of what all of the states are doing with ABLE, I would go to the ABLE National Resource website and start there. They are a non-biased view on a snapshot of what all states are doing. And then, of course, when you get a better idea of which state might be the right fit for you, whether it's the state you live in or another state that you think you like those benefits and features, I would suggest going to their website. What you're looking at here is the website for the ABLE for All savings plan. So that's ableforall.com. You get to this marketing website where you get to learn more about the plan. You can see if you're eligible for an ABLE plan, get to see how it works, see some benefits, read up about some of the features like a prepaid card, which we'll talk about later. You see the resources tab there at the top of the page. That's a place where you can get some more insight into some financial education tools, hear from people that are using these plans themselves. A lot of states have a resource tab. I would suggest going on there and getting some insights there. Something that's unique to the collaboration state savings plans, although other savings plans might do this in the future, is we created the opportunity for you, of course, to call in if you have questions. That's similar to other states. And you can send emails, again, similar to other savings plans. But we heard from some users that they wanted the ability to just live chat with a real person at our call center right from the website, and we've built that in. So in the lower right-hand side of the site there, you see that little icon, that little message icon. You could click on that and actually chat via your typing on your computer with a live call representative if you feel more comfortable getting information that way. And in fact, by doing that, if you really need help, there's the capability for that call center to, you can grant them some access with your computer, and they can literally point on the screen where you should go next to gather the information you need. So it's been a very handy tool. Again, we focus on making sure we're implementing these tools to make ABLE an overall tool for your financial futures. Now we're going to start going into a little bit of the back end, the behind the scenes for our ABLE plan here, the ABLE for All savings plan. And again, this might look very similar to what some of our other collaboration states, although there will be some differences. But I thought this was important when Chris gave us the opportunity to do this, because we can show you a lot of information through our normal website, but we really can't show you some of these pieces unless you're signing up for a plan or managing your plan, and yet this is where a lot of the real tools come into play. I would warn people, we have heard of some people walking into their local bank and asking if they could open up an ABLE plan there. I must tell you that, unless Chris wants to correct me, I don't believe there is a brick and mortar site, a physical place where you can walk in to open up an ABLE plan just yet. And if there is, we'll let you know. Right now, you open up and manage these ABLE plans via the internet, through your website here, like here. I'm going to walk you through this because that could be intimidating for some individuals. Of course, we can send you some paper forms so you can do it that way, but most people are signing up online. But I can tell you, we understand that can be intimidating for some, and some of this information can be confusing, but what we've done, and I'm hoping other states have done, is to work hard to make sure it's as simple and as straightforward as possible. And so we're going to look a little bit into the back end of our ABLE savings plan here. This slide I included just to show you that with all of our plans, we really focus on you, the individual, the beneficiary, the person experiencing a disability, because these are your plans. Now, as Chris mentioned, there are some people that are allowed to help you with these, and please utilize those individuals if need be, but we really focused all the communication in our plans to you, the beneficiary. We will need to capture some information about you, but if we do, we want to let you know why we're capturing that information. And this is the same for all savings plans. Now, they're going to capture this data a little bit differently, but of course, we're going to need to know your name, and we're going to have to ask for some sensitive data. Now, this is just a pretend Social Security number, so don't worry here. I made that up. But we're going to have to capture that for tax purposes and for verification purposes that we're required to do by law. But we're not going to capture data that we don't need. So feel comfortable that, and all of this data is going to be completely secure. But we do need to capture some of that. So be ready for it. But when we do, we try to do it in a nice, simple, easy format like you're seeing here. Some things that we didn't have to do, but we think are useful for some individuals, and in fact, we heard this from our collaboration and from our work with self-advocates, is they wanted to really use this as a tool. So we built in a function that allows you to set a goal. You might want to set a goal for yearly, I want $2,500 to be put into my ABLE plan. That's my goal. I'm going to try to put that in myself, or maybe have some family members and friends help me do this. Maybe your goal is the complete max, which you see there is $15,000 for this year. You're able to set your goal and change it any time, but this is another way that we've really worked this into a financial tool for you. Another way that we tried to make this plan very, very simple for you is your ability to easily link a separate bank account to your ABLE plan. This is a way that many people use to get money into and out of their ABLE plan. For instance, you might have a bank account at Chase Bank. When you're setting up your ABLE plan, you can link your Chase bank account to your ABLE plan. That doesn't mean we can see into your Chase account. It just creates a very simple and smooth process for you to put money from your Chase account into your ABLE or from ABLE out. And you can link as many bank accounts as you want. Sometimes people use multiple bank accounts to manage their finances. We wanted to make this easy. And so this is a very simple way. We use a system called Plaid to help integrate and link these bank accounts really, really simply and easily. And if you can't find your bank there, you can enter it in manually. We just try to make it easier for those that are trying to get this process done. Part of the process that you're going to run into with all of these ABLE savings plans is where you're going to put your money. This slide right here just kind of walks through how someone might allocate the money that they're putting into their ABLE plan. But I'm guessing you'll probably need some more information on this. So I'm going to go to another slide that's not part of our system, but it just outlines where our savings plans allow you to put your money. We basically have 4 options for you, and you can choose just one, or you can choose to split it up among 2 of these. And so you see the first option there on the left is a FDIC insured bank account. It's like it's similar to a bank account. You do earn a little bit of interest on this, even though it's extremely secure, but you might not earn as much interest, meaning your money might not grow as fast as in some of these other investment options. But it's a very safe and secure option. The 3 other options that you see here, which is conservative, moderate, and aggressive, those are all investments. You're allowing us to invest your money on behalf of you into the market that you choose. So there's a conservative option for someone who may not want to take a lot of risks or might need to utilize their money on a shorter term basis, all the way up to aggressive. We let you make these decisions on where your money goes. Again, at the bottom, you see a lot of detail of where that money is exactly made up. We'll give you that information if you want, and you can dig and find that really easily. Or if you just know that you want all your money in the cash or all your money in one of the others, we'll let you do that, of course. As you can see, our investments are mainly made up of Vanguard funds with one DFA. It's specifically a real estate fund, but that's how those are made up. So going back to our website, when you're choosing to put your money someplace, you might already know where you want to put it, and you can simply just select those and say that I want to put 25% in cash and the rest of it 75% in aggressive, or split it out how you want. If you need more information, we give you the opportunity to really dig down into some very detailed information of why you might want to choose this, why you might not want to choose this, and the best options potentially for you. But ultimately, we're letting you decide because you are the one that gets to manage your finances. So this page right here shows what would come up if you wanted to really dig down and find out what our ABLE moderate investment option could look like. Now, managing or signing up for the plans are very, very important. utilizing the money is very, very important. We'll talk about that. But getting money into your ABLE plan is very, very important. We already talked about the ease of linking a bank account to your system for easy access in and out, and that's important. We'll make sure to continue to make that easy and even find new ways to make that easy. But another great way to save money for your future is to have other people help you. So why not give family members and friends the option? It might be a good birthday present. It might be a good graduation present. Or maybe they just want to help you reach your goal, because you might have a goal, a big goal of purchasing your own house or a goal of saving up for a very special trip. We want to give you the opportunity to have people help you. And so we have a great online gifting option here, which you can see. You can set up your own gifting page, give people information about what you're saving up money for, allow them to see how close you are to the goal that you set, and it easily allows them to click on this, whether you emailed it to them, maybe you put this up on your social media, which we've made it streamlined and easy for you to do, and they can make an easy contribution to your ABLE plan. Like I said, we also made it easy, or we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to utilize these funds as well. We know some people are going to use ABLE plans to just simply save at the beginning, and we know there's some that are going to use it to immediately put money in and spend it. These plans are built for you that way, and we want to make it easy to get money in and easy to get money out. As I mentioned before, you linked one of your bank accounts. You can simply say, you know what, I need $100 from my ABLE account, so you move it. You go online, which we'll show you just in a minute, and take money from your ABLE account and have it deposited into your bank account. Even though that money is no longer in your ABLE account, because it was from your ABLE account, it's still protected the way that it was when it was in your ABLE account, meaning it's not going to count against those asset limits that we're so drastically working to protect against. So you can move it from ABLE into your bank account and use it there. Some people have chosen to use some of our prepaid cards. Now, it's called a prepaid card, and I'll explain what it is, but it's not like one of those cards that you pick up at the grocery store for your local restaurant or what have you. This is different. This works off of the rails of MasterCard, so it has the MasterCard logo there. You can see it. It looks like a debit card or a credit card, but what this does is this card allows you to move money from your ABLE plan, and you choose how much. Move it straight onto this card and just utilize this card. It doesn't link straight to your ABLE account because we didn't want something to accidentally happen. You lost it or it got stolen and someone uses all your money in your ABLE account. This gives you the opportunity to put as much or as little on your ABLE account anytime you want. And seamlessly be able to do that straight through, whether you're doing it on your phone and moving the money that way or through our website on your computer. There's some really easy ways to top up these cards and utilize that money. And you can use these anywhere online that accepts MasterCard or at the grocery stores. Something that I did not mention earlier is that, of course, it's important for us to make sure all of this information is clear and understandable, including that it's a high-level ADA compliant, so much so that we even made the prepaid card itself ADA compliant as well. And so the color variations there, we put a notch in the side of the card, so if someone is sight impaired, they would be able to still understand which of the cards in their wallet or in their purse was their ABLE card. These are insights that we got from individuals that use our plans, and so we're very open to getting additional comments and insights from those of you that might be utilizing this or want to utilize these plans. So this is our dashboard. Once you've set up your plan, this is the place where you manage it. And again, we don't want people to simply put money in and just simply use the money. We want them to use this as a tool. So we're trying to make this dashboard, which is where you'll go when you sign back into your account, very easy to use. So from this place, you can put money in your account, you can take money out, you can see if the money is growing, you can check your progress to your goal. In fact, this is a very specific site where they're seeing that, yep, they're getting closer to the goal. They can see where they're putting their money. They can sign up for a gifting page or a prepaid card. All of that information can be easily done here and managed here because we feel it's very important that we're giving you the tools that you need to be able to manage your plans. I only have a little bit more information to cover before we can open this up for question and answer, and I do see that some individuals have some questions here. So the next slide talks about something very, very important. Are there fees attached to having an ABLE plan? And the answer is yes. And these fees are going to be different depending on which state or which ABLE plan you open. So I'm going to give you information on the ABLE for All Savings Plan, which is the same for Oregon ABLE and some of our other collaboration states. But please do look to each of those plans to find out how much they are, or compare them utilizing the tools at the National ABLE Resource Center. Here you can see we've worked really hard to keep these plans as low cost as possible. We have a really strong partnership with Someday, who I mentioned before, who is doing a lot for us and doing it so in a way that they're lowering fees as much as possible. So they're an extremely strong partner in this. But as you can see, for ABLE for All, for somebody to utilize this, it would be a $35 fee for the year. That's an annual fee, so $35. And then also, there's a very small fee attached to how much money you have in your plan. And this is going to be very similar for any ABLE plan that you open. But for us, it's $35 annually, and 0.3% up to 0.37%. And there's a difference there because it depends on which option you choose to put your money in. If you're putting your money in the FDIC insured option, it's the 0.3%. If you put it in the aggressive option, it's the 0.37% because there's different costs to us to have you put your money into those different areas. These are some of the lowest fees in the nation, but I know that all ABLE plans are working really hard to keep these fees as low as possible. Some of these random little fees that you see down here on the bottom right don't really usually come up, and these are going to be different per ABLE plan, but I wanted to list some here just in case. Again, these shouldn't be coming up often, much at all, but it's important for you to see them. And in fact, on all of the ABLE plans, to really see this detailed information, there's a booklet called the Plan Disclosure Booklet. You'll probably find that under forms or maybe at the bottom of the website. It's a good idea to look through that. It's not a fun read. It's really it's a very legal document, but we tried very hard to make it very easy to find the information you need to get this level of detail. Again, our real focus with ABLE and all of our plans is to make sure that we are really focusing on the individuals who are going to utilize these plans to better their future. This is a poster that one of our partners, the Oregon Council on Developmental Disabilities, put out, and it was really a guiding light in what we were doing when we were developing and continue to develop our plans, which is understanding the true limitless nature of everybody and making sure that we're building out tools that can help them actually get to that level. So we really appreciate the time today to be able to talk to you specifically about some of the ABLE for All savings plans, to also highlight the great work of Maryland, the state of Washington State, Connecticut in developing and managing their ABLE plans, and we really appreciate their partnership. I can't say enough about the partnerships with Someday site and how they've built out all of these systems for us. But really the most important person here is you, the individuals that are utilizing these plans. So we always want your feedback. We always want your information, and whatever we can do to make these plans better, we're gonna do that within the legal requirements that we have to manage under. You see my contact details there. I'm David Bell. I work for the Oregon Savings Network, but I'm happy to put you in touch with anybody that you need to if I can't answer your questions, and you see my email there. And with that, Chris, I'm going to hand it back to you to go through any questions and answers, and I would really like to have Jim Balsam from Someday help answer some of these questions and provide some additional insight that I might have missed maybe in this process.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, David. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today about this particular program and all the programs that are kind of fall under the ABLE collaboration that you guys have built. You did mention Jim there, and I certainly would like to chat with him. Now, some folks may be interested in understanding exactly how the ABLE for All and Someday and BNY Mellon all kind of work together to provide this particular product to folks that are eligible for it. So, Jim, if you could tell us a little bit about Someday and BNY Mellon and what motivated y'all to get involved in the ABLE space and how you guys are contributing to these programs.
Thanks, Chris, and hi, everybody. My name is Jim Balson, and I'm with the Someday team, which is part of the Bank of New York Mellon, or BNY Mellon. BNY Mellon, for those of you that doesn't probably ring a bell, is a 234-year-old bank that was founded by Alexander Hamilton. It's actually the oldest bank in the United States. And we provide a whole host of services to all 50 of the states, the federal government, and many other institutions, both corporates, universities, endowments, and what have you. And one of our folks were at a conference and ran into David and his partner, Michael Parker, and they expressed a little frustration in trying to launch the ABLE program and looking for the right partner. And that was back in June of 2016, and we worked diligently with David and Michael, and in December of 2016, we launched the Oregon ABLE and ABLE for All programs. Since that time, we've taken our capabilities and worked with Michael, David, and the other states that David mentioned to expand not only into additional ABLE programs, but also into College 529 programs and other savings programs that are sponsored by the states. And the consistent thread is these are state-sponsored programs, and we're working with our partner states to help them offer these programs to their constituents. So, Chris, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Jim. And I'm, you know, as a member of the disability community, and both as a sibling and as a professional, I really appreciate your all's willingness to be involved in the ABLE space. I know that ABLE programs wouldn't exist without some type of financial institution providing these types of opportunities to contribute, or I should say to invest the money and things like that, and to work the back kind of process of all these. So I certainly appreciate your company's willingness to be involved in doing such an incredible job here. I do have a few questions that I want to get to that have been submitted through our Q&A portal real quick. Let's see if we can answer some of these. One of the questions asks, can we have an ABLE account in several different states, or are we limited to only one state? So I guess, Dave, I'm sure you have the answer to that. Would it be possible for somebody to enroll in the ABLE for All program, and then perhaps they want another one in another state? Is that allowed?
You know, unfortunately, it's not. Part of the federal legislation for ABLE limits one ABLE account per beneficiary. You are more than welcome to open up an ABLE account in a different state in that which you live, as long as they allow for that. But again, it would only be one ABLE account, not multiple ABLE accounts.
I gotcha. All right. So I understand that you can only have one ABLE account at any given time. Let's say that you know, I enrolled in one state, but for whatever reason I feel compelled to you know, change and go to another one. Is that allowed?
Yes, that is absolutely allowed. You're able to roll over your ABLE plan from one state to another state, and it's happening now. People open up one, and they might find that another one would best suit their needs. So do make sure that you are looking out there to find the best ABLE plan for you, the individual.
I gotcha. Okay, great. We have another question here that's asking questions about the tax advantage of the accounts. Asking about if there's income tax deductions associated with contributions. So just to let folks know, we do describe these as tax advantage savings accounts, but what we really mean by that, they're really investment accounts. Now, there are no federal income tax deductions related to contributions made into an ABLE account. However, the tax advantages really fall, at least in my mind, in two parts. One, you might live in a state that has decided on their own through state legislation to offer a state income tax deduction associated with contributions made into their ABLE program. So that's something you'd want to look at depending on which state you're enrolled in and which state you live in. But also, the funds that are contributed into these ABLE accounts, into a person's ABLE account, provided that you choose, you know, one of the options that is not the FDIC insured option, you choose one of the investment options, they obviously, you know, you hope that they grow. And typically, in other types of investment accounts, you would be taxed on that growth. Whereas in an ABLE account, those funds grow tax-free, and when you take the money out of the account, provided that you spend the funds on allowable expenses, so qualified disability-related expenses, they are also at that point tax-free. So that's certainly something to note, and that's really what we mean when we describe it as a tax-advantaged savings account. Dave, can you tell us, are there any benefits in terms that have been offered to folks in Oregon with respect to state income tax or anything like that, or anything working on that?
Yeah, so in the state of Oregon, we do offer a state income tax deduction for contributions made to ABLE plans, and we were very lucky that way. There are a number of states that do. There's also a number of states that don't now but are working on that. So although that won't be your only decision on why to join one ABLE plan over another, I would think that it would be a big one. So I would suggest looking into your own state's ABLE savings plan, see if they do offer a state tax deduction, and then look into the other features of the plans to make sure you have the right fit for you.
Excellent, great. I have another question here that says, how can an account exceed $100,000 if there's a $15,000 limit? So I apologize, I probably wasn't being clear enough. Anybody can contribute into an ABLE account. And all of those contributions combined in any given tax year are not allowed to exceed $15,000. So as an example, let's say, well, we'll use my brother as an example. My brother lives down in Texas with my parents, and he has an ABLE account. And let's say, hypothetically, that my parents put in $7,000, or I should say $7,500, and then my grandparents sometime within the tax year put another $7,500. So that would equal $15,000 cumulatively for that tax year. At that point, the ABLE account will not be able to accept any other contributions until the following tax year. So on January 1st, let's say that my brother didn't use any of those funds, then then other contributions could be made on top of that $15,000, and it can grow over time. So as another example, if say you are a parent of a young child with disability, and your only plan is to really just try and save as much money in your child's ABLE account to prepare them for when they're an adult, and you're in a financial circumstance in which you can actually contribute $15,000 a year without touching it. So in the first year you can contribute $15,000, and then the second tax year you can contribute another $15,000, and then the third tax year you can contribute an additional $15,000. So at that point you've now contributed $45,000 to the account in 3 years. And hopefully, the economy hopefully is doing well, and you've chosen whichever investment you feel comfortable with and you think best meets your needs given how you're going to use the account. So hopefully there's still $45,000 in there, but hopefully there's more than that. And again, that $45,000 would be growing tax-free. And perhaps you're more conservative and you want to make sure that you're not vulnerable to losses in the market. Perhaps then you would choose, as Dave was saying, the option of the FDIC insured account, where you have a lot more I guess, less risk, I should say, of losing any funds. Now, Dave, is there any risk associated whatsoever with losing funds if you're in that FDIC insured option?
Well, I would caution there's always going to be some very minuscule amount of risk when it comes to saving or investing money into the financial institutions there. FDIC insured means that the Federal Deposit Insurance Commission has actually insured each of those accounts up to $250,000. So that's a lot of security there, and I have not seen a situation where that would have been breached. But I guess I just got to be careful and say there's always going to be a small amount, but just an absolute minuscule amount on the FDIC insured portion.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Something drastic
I think another
happened.
Right. I think another important point that I want to kind of underline that you made, Dave, there's a strong misconception out there that you can go into your brick and mortar, local financial institution, let's say a Bank of America or Wells Fargo or what have you, and walk in and say, hey, I want to open up an ABLE account. I think you're absolutely right, at least at this point. I don't know that there are any financial institutions or common financial institutions that would, number one, actually know what you're talking about, and number two, be able to set that up for you on the spot. It's important to note that because we wanted to make sure that these accounts are as financially accessible to people with disabilities as possible, meaning that the enrollment is very inexpensive and the fees are relatively inexpensive, the feeling was that maintaining all this online would provide for the best opportunity to make sure that the costs were as low as possible, as opposed to perhaps having to train tens of thousands of tellers and bank folks that work at local banks about this and having them be administrators of these things. So it's important to note that, because I know that a lot of folks have had questions in the past about how to enroll and where to enroll. So I'm glad, Dave, that you provided us with some information today on what enrollment looks like, at least in the ABLE for All programs. So I guess another question, some folks might be scratching their head as to why one state would want to contract or collaborate with another state in order to provide this. Can you give us some thoughts as kind of one of the leaders of a collaboration? What motivated you guys, or what motivates your partner states in partnering with you all?
No, it's a really, really good question, Chris. And I know that for each state there's probably going to be a different answer for this. I can tell you specifically for the ABLE collaboration that we really have looked at this much less like a partnership where we, let's say the Oregon is going to set up a plan on behalf of another state and just manage it for them. That is not at all our model. Our model is we really thought that we had some good ideas when we were setting up our plans, and we could make them even better if we collaborate with some like-minded states. So I can answer for the ABLE collaboration states. We all felt that we had some very like-minded focus on making sure that these ABLE plans are as strong as possible for the individuals. Our mindsets were similar on that. We worked with some of the same community groups and self-advocates in setting up these plans, and we thought we would just be better together. And that's why the ABLE collaboration came together. We're learning so much from Maryland. We're even learning from Washington State and Connecticut as they're setting up their plans, and they're also learning and benefiting from us. And also some are seeing some cost savings in that. If we're working together on this, we might only need to produce something once rather than 5, 6, 7, 10 different times. So we know that's been a big benefit for others. There are some great state partnerships out there that if the state has no resources or no ability or no individuals per se to really focus on this, where that state can go and partner with another state and just have a plan just set up just for them. So it's going to be a little different depending on the state, but our collaboration was a little different in that we wanted some individuals really to help kind of find ways to make this better and work on our own sharings of best practices.
Gotcha. So we have about 2 minutes left. I want to ask just a couple more questions, and I know that the answers to these questions may be different from program to program. So for the ABLE for All program, a question was submitted that asks, is there a charge for transferring funds from the ABLE account to a linked bank account?
So no, there is not for the collaboration states currently any charge in moving your money from your ABLE account to your linked bank account, or vice versa, from your bank account into your ABLE account. No.
Gotcha, gotcha. And as we discussed earlier about the broad array of different disability-related expenses that you can use these funds for, I think it's foreseeable that some of these might be consistent expenses, let's say perhaps somebody's rent. With that in mind, we had a question here that says, can you set up automatic transfer of funds, say, for monthly rent payments? Is that possible through your program?
So I'm going to let Jim answer this because we've been working on some technology pieces here. So Jim, do you mind answering this question?
Sure, David. That's not currently a feature. What we do allow, of course, is movement onto the prepaid card, and then recurring expenses could come off that prepaid card. So, for example, a utility bill, you could link your utility bill to that prepaid card and load your prepaid card, and the funds would then be moved to the utility when they made a claim on that prepaid card. So it's not directly, no, but using the prepaid card, you can make those payments.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, I think that is about all the time we have. I think this was a great kickoff to our Spotlight series. I want to thank both David and Jim for taking time out of their schedules to teach us a little bit about what seems to be an incredible program run through the state of Oregon. I encourage folks to check out their website. I encourage folks to check out our website at www.ablenrc.org. If you want to take a look at the slides again for whatever reason, we will be archiving this webinar on the Able National Resource Center website. We're going to have it under the webinar section, and we're also going to associate it with those different program state pages that David mentioned, so that if you're looking at any given state, you'll be able to get that much more information as a result of these webinars. So with that, thank you again to our presenters, and thank you everybody who was able to join us, and keep an eye out for upcoming webinars, and I'm sure we will all be coming together soon again in the future. So everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.